Have you ever, like, looked at a letter, maybe on a page, and just stopped and wondered, why that shape? Why does it sound the way it does?
It's something we take for granted, isn't it?
Totally. Well, today we're going on a really surprising journey. We're diving into the origin story for one of the most, well, distinctive letters we have, the letter Q.
Yeah, and we'll be exploring it through a really fascinating lens, the Odam theory.
Odam Tilly. Right,
Right.
okay.
And this theory suggests something pretty radical, that letters aren't just, random symbols somebody made up. They might actually be direct reflections of deep human experience, instinct, even our connection to the natural world.
Wow, okay, so not arbitrary at all.
Exactly. The idea is that each shape, each sound, even the meaning we attach to it, it might have a real biological, symbolic, maybe even an emotional basis way back in our past.
So our mission then for this deep dive is to unpack how Q specifically, its sort of unique shape, that particular sound, its meaning, how all that could link directly back to ancient human survival, specifically hunting and eating.
That's the core idea we're exploring.
Get ready for some, well, I think some real aha moments,
Yeah.
because this connects something as abstract as Q to something incredibly visceral, like a bone getting stuck in your throat.
It's a powerful connection when you see it laid out.
Okay, let's dig into this then. The Odom-Tilly theory, it's also called the human language theory, right?
Correct.
And it basically argues our alphabet is a kind of natural coding system shaped by biology, behavior, survival.
Yeah, survival instincts, how we interacted with the world around us. It suggests language, even its written form, might be less of an artificial invention and more of a natural outgrowth of just being human.
So less invented, more encoded from experience.
That's a great way to put it. Under this theory, each letter's shape and sound aren't random. They actually mirror a real-life situation or like an embodied experience from way back. The alphabet is natural memory.
Natural memory, I like that. It makes language feel so much more, I don't know, grounded.
It does. It connects us very directly to those ancient experiences.
Before we jump into Q's shape, though, are there any common misconceptions about this? Like, is this seen as mystical or something?
That definitely comes up. People sometimes think it's about, hidden magic or symbols in that sense, but it's really not. It's focused on the physical, how the human body, our senses, and the environment we lived in literally shaped these forms and sounds over huge stretches of time.
Okay.
It's actually quite practical, quite grounded in physical reality and how experience gets sort of burned into our systems,
Yeah.
including language.
Got it. That makes sense. So let's apply this to Q, the shape. You start by asking us to imagine early humans, right? Hunter-gatherers.
Exactly. Survival depended on hunting. And when they ate, maybe after a hunt, it was likely fast, maybe the meat was raw or barely cooked, tools were limited.
So you can imagine chewing wasn't always thorough, accidents would happen.
Right. Now, in Odom-Tilly, the letter O comes first. It represents the throat.
The throat, okay.
Yeah, the open human throat.
Yeah.
It's naturally circular, smooth. It's the passage for breathing, speaking, swallowing. Think of O as clear, open, unimpeded flow.
Okay, I see the O. Now, here's the part that, for me, was just, wow. The pivotal moment.
This is the core of the Q origin story in this theory.
So picture this. Someone's eating that meat, maybe gnawing on a bone, and a sharp piece of bone, maybe still attached to the meat, gets swallowed accidentally. And it doesn't go down. It gets lodged, stuck horizontally across the throat. It won't move forward, won't move back.
You feel that immediate blockage, that tension.
Definitely. And visually, what happens?
Well, that throat, which was represented by the open O, suddenly has a barrier across it, a horizontal obstruction.
Right.
And look at the letter Q. It's essentially an O with an added element, a tail, or a stroke.
Yeah.
And in some really old forms of the letter, that stroke was a horizontal line, sometimes right inside or across the circle.
So the stroke is the bone.
That's the interpretation. The stroke represents the foreign object, the bone, obstructing the natural flow of the O. The clear passage is now blocked. It's paused, uncomfortable, dangerous even. So Q becomes O, throat, plus stroke, bone obstruction.
That is incredibly direct. It's like a little diagram of a crisis moment.
Exactly. It turns the letter from just an abstract shape into a visual record of a very real, very ancient survival challenge.
It makes the letter feel, yeah, almost alive, like you said. Okay, so the shape is the throat plus the blockage. What about the sound, that Q sound, often without a vowel right after it? How does that link back?
Well, think about what happens biologically when something's stuck like that.
It's a gag, right? Try to cough it up.
Precisely. The body's immediate involuntary reaction is to try and eject the object. This triggers a deep-throated gag reflex, a forceful expulsion of air from the very back of the throat. And the sound produced by that reflex, that constricted air hitting the blockage deep in the throat, it's very close to a QQQ sound. It's not made with the lips or the front of the mouth. It's guttural, originating right where the problem is.
So the sound itself is the body's reaction noise, not a word, but like a physical effect.
Exactly. It's not a conscious choice of sound, like saying apple. It's a biological response to extreme discomfort and tension, a pre-linguistic, involuntary vocalization caused by the blockage.
Wow. But then how does an involuntary gag sound become, a letter in an alphabet? That seems like a big leap. Does the theory suggest our first sounds were kind of discovered from these reactions?
That's a key part of the broader Odam idea, yes.
Yeah.
It proposes that these incredibly primal, survival-linked sounds, gasps, cries, coughs, gags, were the raw material. They were so fundamental, so tied to life-or-death moments that they became embedded in our communication systems very early on. Over time, they might have been refined, stylized, and eventually assigned symbolic meaning as part of a developing language. But the origin lies in that raw biological reflex.
It gives you a totally different picture of language origins. Not people sitting around deciding sounds, but sounds emerging from living and surviving.
And we do see echoes of this deep, guttural Q sound in various languages, don't we?
Yeah, you mentioned that, like in Semitic languages.
Right, think of kof in Hebrew, or kof in Arabic. These often represent a sound made further back in the throat, sometimes more forcefully than in K. Turkic languages also have similar deep guttural sounds linked to Q.
Even in English, though maybe softened, words like car or Iraq, you can feel that sound originates deeper than K.
You do, and it's interesting, even animals make similar choking or guttural sounds when trying to dislodge something. It points towards a very natural, almost universal, instinctive sound linked to this kind of throat obstruction.
That cross-species comparison is pretty compelling. Okay, so we have the shaped throat plus bone. We have the sound, the gag reflex. What about the meaning? What symbolic weight does Q carry because of this origin?
Well, if the core experience is being physically stuck, unable to move something forward or back, then the symbolism follows directly from that.
Stuckness.
Exactly, stuckness. A forced pause. Resistance to movement, inactivity, a kind of frozen state. It signifies something unnatural interrupting the natural flow, a blockage, a halt. The theory often refers to it as stopped energy.
Stopped energy. And it's actually kind of amazing when you start looking at English words with Q, how many seem to fit that pattern.
It is quite striking.
Like you mentioned, a queue, people stuck in line, paused.
Oh, fixed order, no movement.
Quarantine. A forced pause, restricted movement for safety.
Right. Time is fixed, movement is stopped.
A quote. You take words and freeze them, remove them from the flow of speech.
Exactly. Fixed in time.
Quiet. The absence of sound, of motion, stillness. To quench thirst or fire. It's a sudden stop to something active.
A halt to burning or drinking.
And a quagmire. Literally being stuck, unable to move.
I can't get out.
It's really consistent, isn't it? All these words seem to echo that core idea of being paused, blocked, stopped, involuntarily still.
They really do seem to cluster around that central concept derived from the physical experience. And as we touched on, this isn't just English. That deep Q sound in Semitic or Turkic often carries connotations of firmness, hardness, rootedness, which implies resistance or a lack of easy flow.
So the sound and the associated feelings seem to resonate across language families.
It suggests a deep, perhaps instinctive connection between that specific guttural sound, the physical sensation of being stuck in the throat, and a whole family of related meanings about blockage and pause.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together for the letter Q. According to Odam, Q isn't just Q.
No, it's much more. It's presented as a symbol of a critical survival moment. It's memory encoded in form and sound.
Right. The shape is literally a picture. The O of the throat, interrupted by the stroke of the bone. A visual diagram.
The sound is the body's involuntary reaction, that guttural gag or cough trying to clear the blockage.
The biological reflex made audible.
And the meaning layered onto all that is stuckness, pause, inactivity, a break in flow, stopped energy.
That's the essence of it for Q, yes.
So, thinking bigger picture now.
Yeah.
What does this theory apply to Q? Tell us about language itself.
Well, it pushes us to think that maybe language isn't separate from our physical primal experiences. Maybe things like fire, hunger, fear, things that absolutely shaped our evolution and instincts. Maybe they also directly shaped the tools we use to communicate.
So language becomes a kind of living record.
Exactly. A living record of survival, of our interactions with nature, of our own bodily instincts and reactions, all passed down, almost hidden in plain sight, within the letters of our alphabet. It's a profound thought that the alphabet could be a map of ancient human experience. It really is. When you think about it that way, how deep could these connections run? How much of our everyday communication might be echoing these ancient survival patterns without us even realizing it? What stands out to you most about that possibility?
For me, it's the idea that something so seemingly abstract, so intellectualized as the alphabet, could have roots that are so incredibly physical, so tied to the gut, literally. It suggests a deep continuity between our most basic survival instincts and our highest cognitive functions.
A bridge between the primal and the symbolic.
Precisely.
And there you have it, a really deep dive into where the letter Q might have come from, all seen through this unique Odam Tilly perspective.
It certainly makes you look at letters differently.
It really does. It shows how even the simplest bits of our language could hold these profound ancient stories about just surviving as humans.
And maybe Q isn't the only one. This theory encourages you, really, to look at the whole alphabet not just as, arbitrary scribbles, but potentially as this incredible map of human experience. Makes you wonder, doesn't it, what other letters might be holding similar secrets from our past?
That is a great question to ponder. We love digging into these kinds of sources and exploring the questions you want to understand better. Let us know what piques your curiosity. Until next time, keep digging into the fascinating world around you.